Good morning. Welcome to the August 11th Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with our agenda review. Bob?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, there are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. All right. Is Lisa
Mr.
here?
Chair, we're not quite sure what happened to Lisa, but maybe I'll just cover that item.
That would work for me.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item in your packet is an emergency procurement policy. We have discussed this at a recent work session, but our current policy states that in emergency situations, contracts for purchases or repairs may be made without advertising for bids, but still do require board action for the official proceedings. This particular proposed emergency policy addresses the potential need for a more efficient process if we find ourselves in a hurry to secure some purchases during the pandemic. And so when you reviewed the proposed policy at the July 28th work session, you did have some recommended changes in terms of limiting the time frame associated with the duration of the policy. And so we're bringing this policy forward here today for the board's consideration, and we're recommending approval.
All right. Do we have a motion for the board?
Purvis moves.
Brunder will second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the policy. Any discussion?
The only discussion I have is I know that we will, as soon as something like that takes place, we'll be notified. So there's checks and balances. I think that's very helpful, so the public knows that. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Landcamer, I appreciate that comment. Certainly it's intended to be, if we get down to the wire with the spending requirements associated with the CARES Act, or if we have truly an emergent need that needs attention, would be the only time I see this policy really coming into play, and certainly that will be reviewed with the board after the fact.
Right, and it should be noted that this was really discussed in length with the full board at the work session. So we certainly understand what's going into it.
And it will only be in place during the time of kind of the designated or declared emergency status associated with the pandemic. So it's not intended to be a long-term policy.
Okay. Well, we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. All right. Okay. So we'll go into Public Works.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Ryan, you
Commissioners.
Morning, Steph.
Ryan is tied up with the County Road 12 eminent domain court proceedings this morning, so he asked me to fill in for him. I have 3 items for your consideration this morning, and then a few updates on construction and some other planning items. The first item I have is consideration of the MnDOT Local Bridge Replacement Program Grant Agreement. This is for the CASA 41 bridge replacement that is about to get started. We've got the contracts out to the contractor, and part of the agreement for the funding of this bridge, if you recall, we have about $960,000 of federal funding on this bridge. And we also received about just over $700,000 worth of bridge bond money from the state. And that state money requires us to enter into these grant agreements agreeing that that is the limited amount of money that we have, and anything above and beyond that is local cost or state aid costs. So I'm just asking for consideration of that agreement and approval of that agreement so we can execute.
Also, I'll move that.
Second, Langhammer?
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Any discussion?
It's good.
Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The second item is consideration of a cooperative construction agreement between Blue Earth County and the City of Mankato. This is for the CASA 16 or Stoltzman Road Trail between Veterans Memorial Park and Pleasant Street. This project is actually out for bids. We open bids tomorrow. And this agreement would just establish the agreement between the city and the county to 50-50 cost share on the cost of the project. We did receive transportation alternatives funding for this, as well as a DNR local trails grant. So the amount of the 50-50 split doesn't amount to a whole lot for both the city and the county, which is a great thing. I think we end up being in the $50,000 to $75,000 each for this trail. So, yeah, it's a good thing.
I'll move approval.
People seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Great deal getting the funding. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really going to make a difference. You know, a lot of kids are walking to school, and
Yeah.
so I think it's a really positive thing. I know it's been a really challenging thing because of the slough and everything else, but good job.
Yeah, it'd be challenging, but it'll be worth it. Yeah, it's real popular before it's even done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be it's well needed, and it's going to be nice when it's over. But thank you very much. Any more discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Great, thank you. And the third item is the final payment of $70,164.53 for the CASA 12 extension project. As you recall, this project has been lingering for a little while since we completed it. The biggest challenge that our prime contractor was having is that one of their subcontractors went bankrupt, and in order to fulfill the necessary tax payment requirements, that what we call the IC-134s, they had to jump through some hoops with the state, and we finally got that taken care of with the state, got the necessary paperwork submitted for auditors' purposes, and so we're able to proceed with the final payment.
Brunder will move approval.
Purvis seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, we're doing the final payment for this, then the roundabout comes about.
Correct. There's always something
It
else.
is, isn't it?
Any more discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Great. And then I just have some informational items for you. Ryan asked me to give a quick update on the Regional Parks Master Plan, which I believe you've had significant discussions on, but the update is that the application for that, which makes us eligible for legacy funding on the trail system, included trails are the Minnesota River Trail, the Red Jacket Trail, and the South Route Trail. And in order to complete the application, we now have to submit a master plan. So we are working to develop an RFP solicitation within about the next month to get a consultant on board to develop that plan. Again, it's a 50-50 cost share with the city. We're estimating between $20,000 and $30,000 total to develop that plan, and completion of that plan would be in the first quarter of 2021. On the construction side of things, just quick updates. County Road 1 from 9 to 90, the surcharge that's happening near the Le Sueur River. We are in the process of putting the 5th lift on that section. There's 2 more to go. So by middle of September, we should have that full surcharge complete and then let it sit for the 6 to 9 months that it's estimated to need to be in place. The County Road 1 in Good Thunder, the concrete work, concrete curb and gutter, is supposed to be starting today. So in the next week, we should have most of the concrete work done, with then bituminous paving to follow either late next week or the following week. So I would say that project is right on schedule to be complete by the scheduled August 31st completion date.
I'm sure the folks. in Good-
Everything's gone really well on that job.
I'm sure the folks in Good
Everybody's been very,
Thunder
very happy.
really excited to get that done with.
Yep. County Road 10, so same area down from east of Vernon Center to County Road 1. Again, that project's proceeding great. We've got all the underground work, all the tile culverts are done. The reclaiming of the existing pavement is underway, and the bituminous paving is actually scheduled for about a week and a half from now. So we're, again, I would say by early to mid-September, that project will be done as well.
Great.
The bituminous overlays, all the paving work is complete. Actually shouldering as well. We've just got some striping and rumbles left to do on County Road 6 and County Road 6 and County Road 112 over by Lake Crystal.
Wow, is that early?
No, usually the overlays get going real early. This job we just had we had 2 sets of we were trying to work with the railroad over by Lake Crystal, and we were trying to accommodate Excel's schedule on their line, and they were working in that area, so we delayed these 2 roads. So we could have been done earlier, but we purposefully delayed these 2.
Okay.
And then the County Road 60 Pole Road Roundabout, that's a city project. We just drive through periodically, so my best update is they do have the concrete curb and gutter down, and I think they're working on the concrete apron. So last I spoke with them, they were a couple weeks behind schedule, but they're getting close now. Once all the underground's done, things usually proceed a little quicker.
When do they think they'll be completed? with
You know, I
that?
didn't ask them specifically, but it looks like from where they're at, I would guess about that first or second week of September. Just my experience with
Yeah,
what's
maybe
left to
not
be
quite
done.
in time for MSU, but
Yeah,
that's,
maybe they've got an accelerated schedule worked out with their contractor, but I'm not exactly sure. I can follow up with them and give you an update.
that'd be good.
Thank you.
On the planning side, some of these overlap planning and construction, but County Road 27, we've got the plans pretty much complete. We've got them over to state aid, just waiting for state aid approval. So we're a little bit behind where we wanted to be with bidding, but it looks like we'll be able to bid that project and open bids in early September. Whether we get any work done this fall, that's to be determined. I think it's going to be primarily a 2021 construction project. The CASA 16 trail that we spoke about earlier, again, bids tomorrow. We're planning to bring that for consideration for award on the 25th of August. The way we set up that contract was to give as much flexibility to the contractor as we could. So we've set a June 15th, 2021 completion date. So it's possible that a contractor may choose to come in and do all the work next spring. However, it's also possible they may come in and choose to do it all this fall, depending on workload. So we hope that by doing that, we'll get the best pricing possible that we can on the project. The County Road 41 bridge replacement, this really will be moved into construction, but we've got that set up. Again, that's a June 15th, 2021 completion date. Minowa Construction will be performing the work. I need to follow up with them and get contracts signed. But it appears from preliminary discussions that they'll get started on the bridge this fall, try to get done up through the beams on the bridge, and then leave it until next spring to finish the deck, because the concrete that's used on a deck pour is very sensitive to temperatures. So to try to do that late fall is very challenging, or winter work for them. CASA 57 Riverfront Drive, again, we're just working towards the completion of the plans. Bolton and Mank is working on that for us, and they expect to have 90% plans here at the end of August or early September. County Road 1
When do we plan for that to come up with bids?
Our plan is to bid that over the winter months, so December, January, February type time frame.
Okay.
that one is a local partnership program project, so there's a lot of coordination with the state on that one, so the whole development process just takes a little bit longer than we're typically used to
So
on
is
our
that a
projects.
state-city partnership?
It's state, city, county,
County.
yes.
Right.
Yep, yep. The County Road 1 from 9 to 90, we are jumping back into that now that we're going to have the surcharge done. We can start putting the wheels in motion on the next phase of that project. We have some work to do to finish up the plans, and then we also have some right-of-way acquisition that has to happen. So now that we're completing the 27 right-of-way acquisition, we're going to transition into the County Road 1 acquisition. Again, that one the intent would be to bid that over the winter here. County Road 82, Victory Drive from Stadion to Hoffman. We've completed the feasibility report, which is really the 30% plan for us. And Bolton and Mank is again working towards 60% plans on that project. And again, that is a 2021 project as well. You'll sense a theme here. There's a lot of 2021 projects. CSAH 27 and Eagle Lake water main replacement project. That's a city-led project at this point. We did have a call with them last week. It sounds like they're leaning towards a full reconstruction of the road after evaluating the options, but there still has to be some coordination done to flush out the cost share and how that's going to work. CSAH 10 and 72 in Vernon Center, that is a project that's been in our CIP, and it's really dependent on the bonding bill outcome. So if they don't get any bonding money for it, it's likely that that project will slide. And then the CSAH 44 in Madison Lake, that's a cooperative agreement project with the city if they wanted to pursue something, and we're just waiting for approval on that. So Ryan is going to follow up with the city on that. But you'll recall that intersection's incorporated into the MnDOT project on Trunk Highway 60, the realignment of the intersection.
Okay.
So that's everything I have for you today. Is there any questions?
Oh, that was really nice. Thank you very much.
I just have a comment.
Sure.
I'm really excited that you're going to do electronic bidding. Thank you for your work on that.
You're welcome. Turned out it was much easier than we expected. It was the
Okay.
flip of a switch on the end of our provider. So we'll see how it goes. That 27 project that I spoke of earlier will be the first one
Yeah.
we're gonna try that.
Yeah.
So
Great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Good seeing
Thank you. All right. I think our next on our agenda is our county attorney's office.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, young man. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
We're doing well.
Commissioners, Mr. Chair, thank you for your time. I've had an opportunity to review the information that's been provided by our office that's in the packet. I don't have a lot to address specifically with regards to that information. It's relatively self-explanatory. In terms of updates that aren't included in here, I just wanted to point out a couple of developments in the office and a few issues that we're going to be dealing with going forward. One is we have started doing jury trials again. I had the first jury trial about a month ago, and we had another one last week. Both of those went fairly well. The office was able to get convictions on both of those. The most recent one was a pretty significant aggravated robbery, first-degree burglary case that my colleague Taylor Fast handled last week. Interestingly enough, COVID was a discussion amongst the defense attorneys in our office and the courts on how that would be handled when we brought prospective jurors into the courthouse in order to make sure everybody was as safe as possible while still getting these jury trials back on the calendar and trying to get back to handling those in that fashion. There wasn't a lot of significant issues with that. Somewhat surprisingly, the jurors didn't seem to be overly focused on that particular issue. They were able to focus on the facts of each of the case. There were no major issues during jury questioning regarding people feeling safe or not feeling safe while they were there serving their jury service. So those went very well. There were no major concerns expressed by the court or court administration following both of those as well. So we're happy to say that those went fairly successfully. The other thing I just wanted to point out as part of the update is there are still a significant number of cases that are mandatory appearances that are in court administration's queue to schedule. Most of those are simply delayed court hearings because of the pandemic.
The number I heard from the county attorney yesterday when we were generally discussing this update was there's approximately 2,000 cases still in the queue that are mandatory appearances that have to be put back on the calendar. So some of the numbers that you see in the packet before you are going to go up. We expect those numbers to rise more than they typically would at this time of year, simply because at some point those court hearings have to start getting scheduled again. They are attempting to move in person, and by they I mean court administration and the general judicial district and court system. As we move towards those in-person hearings, we continue to wait and try to react as best we can with the information that's provided if we're not out in front of it. Some of those discussions are had amongst everybody, and some of it's just waiting for the Supreme Court and other bodies to make their next step in their process known to everybody. So the in-person hearings, there's phases that the court system has set up for how these are supposed to continue to develop into mostly in-person hearings. I'm not 100% comfortable with each phase of those in terms of what those details are, but we are moving in that particular direction. There's been a significantly more number of in-person hearings this week and last week than there were in the past, and we just continue to work through that process to make sure everybody's seen in a timely fashion to have their cases heard. So that's the information and the update that I wanted to make sure we addressed here today. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer those. Some of the information I might not have either. So.
I have a question. These mandatory appearances, can they be done electronically?
If the problem that we have with those, the short answer is currently yes. The problem that we have with those is a number of individuals, a lot of individuals that are dealing with those don't have access to the technology necessary for them to make an appearance electronically or remotely. Some of them can't be, depending on the severity level of the offense. The rules of procedure require them to be in person. To be less severe cases, they can do remotely. We've done a lot of work with pro se individuals that aren't represented by attorneys, trying to reach out to them more so than we typically would to resolve cases remotely. Typically they would come into court, we would meet them there in certain group and block hearings and try to work cases out at the courthouse. Since those people can't come in, what we've done is set up a process and a procedure where we're notified if they want to talk to us about their particular criminal case or traffic ticket, whatever the case may be, and whoever the assigned attorney is will reach out to them to try to work that out. If that doesn't happen, then they get notice of a hearing, a remote hearing, or an in-person hearing, depending on the type of case. Oftentimes they will notify the court they either do or do not have access to the technology to make that appearance. That's a big issue that we've been dealing with.
Is there an opportunity for people who could do it remotely but don't have access to a remote thing that they could come to a place to do that remotely? I think there's a safety issue here. I was on that committee that dealt with the courts, which was not very satisfying, let me put it that way. And what I heard on that was the more remote you could do, the better off you are. So I'm just throwing that out. The other question I have, were you using 2 courtrooms and the jury room for the jury trials?
Commissioner, thank you. Regarding the first question, a lot of the technology available for remote hearings can be done by cell phone. The issue becomes connectivity, the wireless ability for people to actually participate in the hearing rather than getting kicked out or not kicked out or attending appropriately. There's been discussions about setting up something for some of these in-person block hearings where that Zoom type of remote appearances are possible. A lot of them have been done by Zoom if the people can't appear, but I'm not exactly sure how those discussions are going from court administration's perspective. Okay. Oftentimes what happens is they're just told we'll schedule for an in-person hearing because they are starting back up and those people are then able to attend in person. Regarding the second question for the jury trials, the particular trial I was involved in, it was the jury assembly room. They brought in fewer number of prospective jurors into the jury assembly room that day, and then for the actual part of the trial they brought in again fewer number than typical into one courtroom where they had specific places set up for each of them to socially distance, and it all happened in that particular courtroom. For the trial last week, they had to bring in a few more prospective jurors because it requires more juror participation during the trial. They used the biggest courtroom that we have, and it was the same type of process. There was just a few more numbers of people that were in the actual part of the courtroom for that process.
So we only had to use two, the jury room and the
That's correct.
Courtroom.
That's correct. It's,
Thank
that
you, that's
discussion's
helpful.
happened a lot about the size of the courtroom and, you know, the numbers of potential jurors you might need to have. And really what that does is, at least I believe, and in my opinion, it just makes the process a little longer, because then you'll just have to bring additional people in once other people leave that particular courtroom, rather than trying to navigate it between two courtrooms to have everybody being able to be there. And there are constitutional concerns the defense consistently raises regarding making sure the trial's fair for them, and we take the position it needs to be fair for everybody while still being safe. So,
I understand that as a sister of a public defender. The other question I have, the cattle call, have they gone to appointments with that, or are they still letting people just come and queue up?
the short answer is they have not gone to appointments. I'm not in, our office isn't necessarily involved in a lot of the discussions with the courts and court administration on when they're going to do that. They did a version of that last Thursday morning for the arraignment courts. It seemed to go okay. I wasn't in the office that particular day. This Wednesday afternoon, there's a block hearing for juveniles to attend, and some of those are going to be done remotely now. We anticipated a lot of them being done in person, but the response is we haven't moved to that phase, or we haven't been approved to that phase where everybody just starts coming back. But they have not gone to a scheduled set hearing time. They're still working through basically a cattle call style calendar.
I know that was one of the suggestions from the Supreme Court, that they go to appointments.
Right.
Okay. I'm done with my questions.
No,
And thank you for
that was excellent. Thank you.
explaining. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Well, if there's nothing else, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. All right. I guess that puts us right into the administrative services there, Bob.
Mr. Chair, the first item is the county board minutes for July 28th.
I'll move the minutes.
Purvis
Thank you.
seconds. I have a motion and a second for the county board minutes for July 28th. Is there any discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. Next part is the bills.
Be the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
Brunder will move the bills.
People second.
I got a motion and a second to accept the bills for the last 2 weeks. Is there any discussion? Let's see, I guess I had a couple. Russ Bassett Corp.
I believe that is the furniture being installed in dispatch. We replaced all of the cubicles or furniture for our dispatchers. So it's a very complicated and extensive furniture set up for all their displays and technology.
All right.
And they're also moving desks that go up and down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the second week is Groundworks Backhoe Service. It kind of speaks for itself what they do, but where are they doing it?
County Ditch 5, maybe?
It is County Ditch 5, you're right.
Okay, that's all I had. Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 6 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. We do have a couple of action items for the board's consideration today. The first is authorization to initiate recruitment for a family support worker in our Human Services Department. The board may recall a work session where this was discussed. The Human Service Department has received additional funding from the state of Minnesota through the opioid resources that Senator Rosen was able to champion in the legislature. This particular position has been delayed a little bit from our previous discussions because the amount of money that the county will receive is quite a bit less than initially indicated by the Department of Human Services. DHS has indicated that the collections of that opioid tax have been much less than what they initially indicated to us. So the Human Services Department has revamped their plan a little bit using now the current available funds. Still enough to support this new position, but some of the auxiliary services that they had planned to kind of combine with this position will no longer be available because of the lack of funding.
Brunder would move approval.
Langhammer seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add Commissioner Brunder here that we discussed this at a work session also, and Phil was here and talked about it at great length.
Right.
I certainly think it's something worth supporting.
Right. Good point. Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Item B then is authorization to initiate recruitment for a Human Services Financial Assistance Supervisor. This is really resulting from a resignation of a position within this particular unit in Human Services. And so staff took the opportunity to look at the current structure within that unit and are recommending some changes. We currently have one financial assistance supervisor and 2 program coordinators underneath that supervisor. One of the program coordinators has resigned recently, and so that really initiated the discussion about should we restructure that unit. It is one of our larger units within Human Services. There's roughly 32 staff that report to that one supervisor currently, and so the recommendation really is to authorize a second financial assistance supervisor, go away from the program coordinator positions. So this would be an internal recruitment without backfill.
Langhammer moves.
People seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just think this makes sense.
Yeah.
Having that many people report to you is probably not the best use of time sometimes, so.
Yep.
And as I understand it, this will probably save us money in the long run.
We will see some savings. Obviously, the increase in the band and grade
Yeah.
from the program coordinator level to a supervisor level. Initially, it will be about $3,000. It will grow over time potentially, but we'll still have that majority of the savings because we don't plan to backfill at this
Yeah.
point.
Good point. All right. Jesse, could you call the roll?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Under informational items, then, we have a promotion of an assistant county attorney to the county attorney division chief. We did receive a resignation of a part-time library clerk. We have filled a custody officer position, and then as a result of a recent resignation, we have initiated recruitment of a taxpayer services specialist 2 position. This again will be kind of creating an internal opportunity without a backfill behind that position.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
One of my questions is, are we at full capacity with our custody officers now? Today?
We're in better shape now. We continue to have some openings that we're working on filling, but we're slowly catching up.
And we're keeping a list, aren't we, of people who are eligible to be custody officers
Yes,
in the future?
yes.
Thank you.
You know, we probably have a little bit better amount of people on the list because we have a law enforcement program here at Mankato State. You know, that, you know, other counties and other areas don't have that, you know, but we have one right here in Mankato, which, you know.
Well, and that's correct, Mr. Chair. We are seeing a number of recent hires that have that law enforcement training. It also is part of our problem is they really want to
absolutely.
work in a patrol environment, so they get some experience with us and then opportunities present. So it works both ways, but certainly the quality of our employees there is very high.
And it's absolutely a step-through program for a lot of people because they go from that to being a law enforcement officer someplace, and I think that's pretty understood.
I think it also gives them some additional background as they move into being an officer.
It's an amazing experience.
Yep, yep.
Before I was a law enforcement officer myself, I spent time in the jail up in Wilkin County.
Ooh.
And it is an amazing experience having to sit, you know, all night long. And
Just for a point of clarification, it was as a staff, correct?
That was my question, Mr. Chair.
oh, right here.
He said spending
Right
time,
here.
so, you know.
Right here. Yes, that was as a jailer and a dispatcher.
Very difficult job.
Yes,
It is, it is.
Good job.
Colleen, probably you remember back to the time when in Blue Earth County here that the deputies actually acted as jailers.
I do, and actually, my dad was with the Highway Patrol. This is history that you don't need. And he was first stationed in Worthington, Minnesota. And the sheriff actually lived in the jail. He and his wife cooked.
That was a common process.
Yeah.
Oh, that long ago.
Nobles
that was,
County.
yeah.
And so if my parents wanted to go out, they'd leave me there. And so they always say I grew up in the jail. Because they babysit me and I'd be at the jail.
Back in the time, in fact, Wilkin
It's good to
County,
know
the
these
sheriff
things.
lived in the jail, and our lived attached to the
Attached, yeah.
Smith from LeSueur County lived
Yeah.
in a building right next to the jail, I believe. Yeah, that was pretty common back in the day.
Yeah. Shows how old I am.
All right. And what's next?
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 7 on your packet is an application for an exempt permit for a gambling permit by the Minnesota Fishing Event for Life. This is an event that they plan to hold in June of 2021. So it's a little earlier than we typically see with these types of requests, but I think they're a little bit new to this process, and they wanted to make sure that they had all their permits in place before they settled on a particular date. So you'll see in the application they say first or second weekend in June of 2021. This event will be held out at the North Shore Park on Madison Lake. So we're recommending approval here today.
Brunder will move approval.
Purvis seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jessica, call roll, please.
Commissioner Pepo,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair and
Getting their ducks in a row.
They are. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 8 in your packet is a resolution regarding the CARES Act funding that the county has received. You're aware that back in March, the federal government did approve the CARES Act, which appropriated money that was directed to states and local governments around the nation. The governor of Minnesota has also approved the distribution of those funds after the legislature was unable to come to an agreement, but that was done at roughly the end of June of this year. And so $8.2 million of CARES Act money was allocated to Blue Earth County and has now been received by the county. This money can be used for a wide range of pandemic-related expenses, and is intended to help local governments not only support their communities, but also recognize the important role that we play in serving our community during this pandemic. And so staff have been working on a plan in terms of how to utilize those funds. We've brought those plans to the county board in multiple work sessions over the last month or so. And so we're proposing today this resolution to kind of get the board's support for an overall plan in terms of the use of those dollars. We list in this resolution that roughly half of the funds will be utilized for Blue Earth County's pandemic response for the period from March 1st through December 1st of this year. We also have pulled aside some funds for a business assistance grant program. The goal of that program is to stabilize the business community and help to maintain our economic health within Blue Earth County. We also are proposing a 10% individual assistance program, or 10% of the funds being used that way. This would help members of our community maintain their basic needs, such as housing, food, and mental health supports. And then the last section here we have is an unidentified reserve. Really wanted to hold back some money as we work with our community in terms of what needs might surface beyond the items listed above. And so some of that money may go back into the programs that I just talked about, but we'll also see, we've heard from our school partners, we may have other needs that surface. We have some larger nonprofit organizations that are reaching out to us to see if we can help them maintain their status in their community. And so we're looking today for board's support around this resolution, which will allow us to start moving some of these dollars into the community in ways that we believe will help stabilize things and address the needs that have been created by the pandemic.
Landcamer will move the resolution.
People seconds.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'm just amplifying that these are percentages, knowing that if we need to, we can move them around. Bob said that, but I just want to amplify that. I'm glad to see that we can help the business community. I think that's really important. And all of the things that we're looking at expending those dollars on are really important in this county.
Just have one question. Do the small communities, will they be getting some money above this, or will they be applying through our program?
The small cities and towns all had an allocation directed to them if their population was greater than 200 residents. So we had 2 townships that their allocation actually is included in our money. We've heard from one of those townships. Neither of those townships have asked for their money from us, but that is part of the reserve that we've peeled off, that if they have expenses that they would like reimbursed, they can submit that to us. We have also reached out to our small cities and towns, and we're in the process of holding discussions with them to try and ascertain what their plans are and whether they would like to partner in any of these programs. We've had one call with small cities. We'll have another one today in the townships. We've reached out to them to see how they plan to use their dollars. If they are unable to utilize all of their dollars, there is the option for those dollars to come back to the county, so we may have additional funds available to the county to utilize in the community.
Very good, thank you.
Could you explain the amount of the grant program, the business grant program, and how that would be handled?
Sure. The Business Assistance Grant Program is intended to be a one-time grant of up to $10,000 to eligible businesses in Blue Earth County. Eligible businesses are primarily those businesses that have less than 20 full-time equivalent employees and have gross revenues less than $2.5 million. There's some other restrictions that are laid out in our program guidelines, but it really is intended to be a small business assistance grant program, so it's not a loan. It's a grant of up to $10,000 to cover expenses for those businesses that were negatively impacted either by the governor's executive orders or the pandemic impact of lost revenues. And so businesses will need to demonstrate that they were impacted by the pandemic. They will have to demonstrate that they have less than 20 full-time equivalent employees and less than that overall revenue figure. And they'll have to demonstrate that they have either rental payments, mortgage payments, utilities, or other expenses related to their operations that were impacted by the pandemic.
Will we be putting out some sort of a advertisement or some sort of a notice, either
assuming the
on
board-
social media, on in the free press, and are we going to do that, or?
Yes, assuming the board approves this plan today, we're all queued up to do a media blitz to get this information out to the community and to utilize all those avenues that are available to us to get the word out.
Okay. The next thing, if you could explain to the public how the individual assistance program would work.
Well, there's a number of different elements attached to that, but the most direct payment sort of benefit to individuals will be through our Human Services Department through an emergency assistance program that currently exists using state and federal dollars. We'll enhance that benefit with these local dollars, and so individuals that have difficulty making rent payments, mortgage payments, utility types of payments are encouraged then to contact the Human Services Department to go through the application process to make sure that they have eligibility that's met according to the guidelines in that emergency assistance program.
All right. And one more thing, and I'm going to step back again to the small business. This isn't only for businesses within the city, it's also for farmers, isn't that correct?
Feedlot operators are eligible. That is true.
All right. Thank you very much. Anything else? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. Good program. I hope it helps people.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 9 in your packet is the financial status report for July 31st of this year. We're a little bit past our halfway point in our fiscal year. You'll see our total revenues are at $65.5 million at the end of July, or our expenses are at $51.8 million. Now, I will point out that that $8 million of CARES Act is in our revenue, and we really don't have many expenses at this point, so that will change the outlook going forward. The other thing I would point out under expenditures, the contract and fees line, it's a little bit above a comparison of last year, but still is only at 31% of our budget. As you heard Stefan indicate in the Public Works report, we've got a lot of projects that are actively being worked, and the billing tends to lag behind those projects, and so we'll see those numbers increase substantially over the next couple of months. Other than that, you know, our revenue is up compared to where we were at this time last year, and our expenses are down a little bit, but I do fully expect that to change in the coming months as those things take place.
Okay.
In terms of the enterprise fund, which is the Ponderosa landfill, as the board is aware, our revenue there is a little over $2 million and expenses are at $2.6 million. We do have, as I've pointed out in the past, a number of cell development or land improvements that have occurred out at the Ponderosa, plus some fairly expensive equipment purchases in this year. So we should see that level out a little bit in terms of the revenues better matching the expenses. We do continue to see active use of the landfill by residents in Blue Earth County, so our revenues are strong in comparison to prior years.
Mr. Chair, do we have any idea what the life expectancy of the landfill is?
Yes, I don't know the exact kind of year off the top of my head, but they have extensive analysis that tells them when the active landfill will be full.
Okay.
And there is the potential for expansion at the Ponderosa, but we've probably got at least 15 years, I would say, but they do monitor that closely.
Thank you.
The second page then of the financial status report does show our cash and investment balances. You'll see our total available funds are just under $60 million compared to kind of our target of about $54.5 million, so we're sitting in good shape there. Our total county funds are at $125 million. Last year, at this point, we're at about $119 million, but again, when you get an $8 million check that you weren't expecting, it bumps those numbers up. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have on the financial status report.
Any questions?
I don't have it.
No questions?
All right.
At this point.
It looks like we will bump right to the commissioners' reports. So, Will, you want to start us off today?
Absolutely. Okay, of course, after our last board meeting on the 28th, we had our work session. Good discussion there. On the 29th, I had a detox personnel meeting, working through some issues there. On the 3rd, Bob and I met with the South Bend Township officials and county attorney to deal with some planning and zoning issues. Of course, then we had the work session on the 4th, department heads on the 5th, and SWCD on the 6th. And most of these were our virtual meetings, viral. That's how
They're that wicked, huh?
That's how I feel sometimes about it.
I like that.
But all in all, things are going well for me. That's my report.
Kip?
All right, Mr. Chair, Will already mentioned the work session afterwards, and we knocked off a couple things that we had great discussion on at the work session with the procurement policy and the CARES Act stuff. We talked a little bit about the license center and some election stuff. Colleen and I and Bob and the engineer and maybe Stefan was in on that call too, had a lot of good discussion at the intergov meeting about County Road 12 and the intersection of Adams Street, and a lot of discussion about not supporting the stop signs.
That's
and
right.
Just creating that Hafner Drive intersection again. I thought we had a great discussion. It gravitated into a roundabout at that intersection relatively quickly. And at this point, from my understanding, Pat is going to go back to his council and tell him that they would like to move forward with a roundabout with our support. We weren't, we as the county engineer, weren't all that excited about not having to go through all the proper processes, but if they can get the funding for it, I guess that's more of our problem with it, is expediting it. It gets to be a funding issue for us, so we certainly support the roundabout because we think it's a safer intersection. And but if they can get the funding for it, I guess we're on board with them trying to move it forward. It does make a lot of sense to do the intersection now while they're doing the development over there. The Councilmember Foreman made a great point. Why would you do the improvement of Adams Street and put in this great big multi-million-dollar truck stop, and then 3 or 4 years later, if that long, take out the stop signs they had thought they should put in there, and then put a roundabout in and disrupt all that traffic movement. So it was a lot of really good discussion, and we were pretty clear that we did not support stop signs. We just didn't think that was a good idea. Hafner Drive is way too fresh on our minds, and that's exactly what it would have turned into, but worse. I mean, the day that opened, I think it would have been a very dangerous intersection, and I just don't think it would have been a good way to move forward with that. So a lot of good discussion on that. Then we had another work session to discuss some of the other stuff that got left over from the work session before that. Then after that work session, I was on a conference call with Eagle Lake. They had a special work session at noon that day. Ryan and I were in there. We had 3 items to deal with Eagle Lake and the county, the road, County Road 27, running through Eagle Lake with the infrastructure they have underneath that's failing. Ryan did a great job talking about how we can participate in that because of the life of the road. They do have some decisions they have to make, but that will be a city-run project because we will just do the overlay on it. And they have a lot of issues underneath with the infrastructure and the sewer and the water and all that. So they'll be working on that. We'll just kind of be helping them and trying to advise them as best we can. They did want to discuss the trail going from County Road 17 out to basically Casey's, or the Highway 14 trail out there on County Road 56. Very problematic, but it's a very short trail, so they're going to move forward and try to figure out something on that. We are supportive of that, and we do have some cost share. We would do that, and that is a busy road, and it would be nice to see a trail that would connect our trail on the county road, and then it also would go out and connect the trail on the Cicada, which actually eventually takes out the Cicada Trail, so it goes underneath the railroad tracks. Then they also have a sign that they want to put in our county right-of-way, and apparently that is an allowable thing that we let city municipalities do, but we were very clear we're not interested in letting them put it in the roundabout. We got a little pushback on that. They thought a sign in the roundabout would look really cool, and I don't disagree, but we do have some serious safety issues if we allow signage and bigger signage and more signage in the roundabouts, because it is designed for people to go over it if they have to. So we were very clear on that we weren't interested in talking about that, but we'll see where that goes with that. I think all of us were on the department head call, which I thought went really well. And then on Wednesday night, I had a planning commission meeting, which we have a whole pile of stuff coming up at the next meeting. It went really well. We had it scheduled till 10:30, from 7 to 10:30. We got started on time, but we were actually done in about an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours, so it wasn't too bad. But
Let's
a
not
lot
have
of
too
items.
much controversy, huh?
Nope, everything is pretty straightforward. The staff's doing a good job reaching out to the people that are applying for these permits and trying to explain this stuff and get through to them. If we have people that have some controversy over it, we're trying to reach out to them and get them on board. But there is one solar farm, but it's out in the rural area. Didn't have anybody testify on it, but Kurt Anderson, the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Board, did a great job getting through all of those, but I don't think anybody testified even. So we heard from the applicants and then a couple other items, but we did get through them relatively quickly, so I think they'll be okay. And there's some changes with the Blue Earth County did. So it got to be a long agenda, but we should be able to get through relatively soon. And then just some other drainage issues and road washout issues with all the rain and whatnot that we've been having. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
As been mentioned, work session. After that, I had a NACO Central Region call where we elected a regional representative to the executive board at NACO, and Tracy Graham from Missouri is the new person. I think everybody was surprised. We expected other people, a couple other people, but that's the new person. Kip did a great job about talking about EnerGov. We actually met the day before and kind of worked through it, which was really helpful. The only thing I would add outside of the County Road 12 is we also talked about working together on equity issues. The city, the county, possibly the school district, GMG, having that umbrella organization that then knowing full well we're going to have to look at our own organizations, but how do we do this holistically and together? So that's a work in progress. Josh and I just got invited to a meeting on this, so we'll keep you posted. On the 30th, I had Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs discussing the CARES Act. One of my questions that day was, has Treasury finalized all of the requirements and guidance? And they said, well, we'd like to say yes, but we don't think so. So stay tuned. Work session on the 4th. On the 5th, we all had department heads. Then I had Women with Heart for the United Way. And then in the afternoon, I had the Blue Ribbon Committee for AMC, where we met with emergency management and housing. One thing about housing, Minnesota Housing Finance Agency got a chunk of money, and it's all about making sure people can stay in their places. And one of my questions was, you know, I'm hearing from some people that, you know, we want people to stay there, but the money should be going to the landlord as opposed to the person. On the 7th, I had Region 9's TAC, Transportation Advisory Committee, talking about what the plans are in the 9 counties for transportation, what's going on legislatively. And because, you know, the big discussion was, well, they'll do a bonding bill this time, and they're not going to. In August, it doesn't work. Maybe in September, the legislature will do a bonding bill, but we don't know that for sure. But it's not going to be an issue, as I understand it, in August for the state legislature. So it just pushes things out a little farther. So that's the end of my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mark?
Okay, we had that work session on the 28th, after the board meeting, and then the 4th work session, department heads on the 5th, and been some discussion with Bob and like the city of Mankato regarding some bylaws changes with Maple, and that's not quite finished, and well, that's about it, I guess, for the,
Okay.
seems like a summer.
Well, mine was fairly short also. Obviously, everybody mentioned the work session after our last meeting. On the 3rd, I had a magic board meeting. And then after that, I had a Safe Roads meeting, which is basically our Blue Earth, Nicollet County towards zero death. We had our work session on the 4th to talk about how we're going to handle the CARES Act money. On Wednesday, the 5th, the AMC started off a coffee with AMC, and I was on that meeting. It was kind of nice to talk to different commissioners from across the state with just a sit-down, easygoing talk. It wasn't really a we didn't have any agenda, just to sit and chat. Of course, it was all online, but then we had our department head meeting. Thursday, I had a Towards Zero Death regional meeting and a library board meeting after that. And then it comes to today. So that finishes me. Do you
That's
have
all.
anything else, Bob?
I do not. That's all we have for you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So move, Purvis.
People second.
Got a motion and a second. Jesse, call a roll, please.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. I had to do that just to...